Well, Graeme, thanks very much for joining us here in the Suzuka paddock, where it's very windy, so we're sheltering in the FIA hospitality right now. But I just want to start off by asking, how have the first few months of this year been for you across your announcement as team principal and then confirmation of Cadillac coming into Formula One?
Very busy few months, Chris. But very productive and rewarding as well. I'm happy that we're out of the team entry process phase. That was a very thorough process, but also extremely draining actually for everybody involved. And so now, although we're busy doing constructive things and building the team further, because we were already a couple of years into constructing the team. But yeah, we've got a long list of things to do, but as I say, it's now that the entry is confirmed, it's full steam ahead, and it's productive and rewarding work that's on the list.
Yeah, I imagine it's so busy though, and you were in Australia for the first race of the season, you're in China for the second one, you're here in Japan. What's on your job list, I guess, when you're at tracks? What do you have to do here?
Well, it's an interesting balance actually, because so when there's 24 races in the year, there's so much of Formula One happens actually at the track in terms of meetings, both with the regulators, with the FIA, also with Formula One, but also the other teams as well. And there are there's various meetings that happen away from the circuit, Formula One Commission meetings, World Motorsport Council meetings, all those kind of things. But there's a lot that happens at the track just simply because everybody's in the same place, and it's quite easy to call a meeting. Now that's easy for the other teams because they're here doing another job at the moment, which is racing on track. We're not, and so it's to some extent there's a little bit of guesswork as to where we need to be this year and when. But then there's a bunch of meetings that we need to have in preparation for next year, and also in particular the first two races in Melbourne and Melbourne and Shanghai. We had a lot of people along from our ownership, from TWG Motorsports and from General Motors as well, and they'll be familiar faces in the paddock throughout this year, because we don't want to turn up at the first race in Melbourne 26 and assuming that is the first race, and for people to not know who everybody is, and vice versa for in particular senior people in the ownership of the team to not be familiar with Formula One. So it does involve a little bit of travelling this year, but it won't be every race, that's for sure.
I love the way you say a little bit of travelling, and you've done the first three that are long-haul flights.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about you having to maybe go to Bahrain as well for the next one for meeting reasons. So It must be full on. In general, though, right now, kind of where is your focus? Is there a specific area, or is it just so wide that...
It's really wide at the moment. Recruitment is extremely important at the moment. We have on average over one person a day joining the team. So we have a weekly meeting every Wednesday morning at the factory, which involves everybody, or at least everyone who's there, and those who aren't there join it remotely, where we just have a chat, tell people what's going on, which is really important, and also we welcome the new starters. So I think this week there was 14, I think it was, or something like that. So it's recruitment is really key at the moment, and looking at the senior management team, there are still some roles that we are looking to fill, and so in a world of wearing multiple hats, we've got to kind of wear some multiple hats at the minute, just to cover some of those roles. But we're getting more and more people on board all the time. New team manager joined just this week. So each time somebody joins, they're bringing, fresh ideas, fresh energy, and it's great to see the team taking shape.
And that team manager's Pete Crawler?
Pete Crawler, yeah.
Who was at Haas?
Yeah. So he was at Haas for about 10 years, I think. Well, in fact, for the whole life of the Haas F1 team, and he was involved in their first season back in 2016, I guess it would have been. So he's been through that loop. Everyone in the team at the moment is effectively experiencing two things. One is life inside a Formula One team, but also it's life inside of a startup business to some extent as well. Although obviously we're a couple of years in now, but it takes a certain kind of attitude to really flourish in that kind of environment, and so those are the kind of people that we've been looking to get on board, and so I'm very happy that Pete's on board, and that's one more hat I can take off my head and pass on to him.
Yeah. I know one topic that fans will be screaming at me to ask you about, and it's drivers, because it's always making the headlines.
Yeah.
Have you been able to get active at least in the driver market now that you have your confirmation of the entry?
Yeah, I mean, that was the key thing that was missing. I think it was a big disadvantage that we weren't able to participate in the last round of the driver market effectively, because it wasn't fair for us to do so when we didn't have a confirmed entry. We could meet with drivers and talk to them, but without the entry confirmation, it's you can't really play in that marketplace, and so that was a big disadvantage. So we're now out of sync with a lot of the teams, because a lot of teams concluded arrangements then that span the introduction of new regulations in 26. But the upside is there's a bunch of extremely good drivers out there who are all hungry to be either in F1 or back in F1, and so there's no shortage of potential applicants, and needless to say, since the entries confirmed, my phone's been sort of reasonably busy. But we're at fairly early stages as far as that's concerned. It's important. Drivers obviously key part of a team. This is a sport, and all sports need heroes, and in Formula One the drivers are the heroes, and quite rightly so. And it's important to spend a bit of time with potential drivers for the team and just find out what their motivations are, and understand where their thinking's at and stuff like that. So they're important decisions, and I would stress that we're only in very early stages at the moment.
Yeah, one name I'm going to put to you, actually I'll put a few, but one that's spoken this week was Sergio Perez, who said he'd been approached by a few teams. He said more than one has spoken to him at least about a potential return in 26. He didn't say how serious any of those talks have been, but is he someone that maybe you've spoken to just to sound out his potential interest in the project?
Yeah, I mean, we are either planning or have spoken to, probably 7 or 8 drivers altogether, I would guess, and it'd be no surprise that anybody who has got recent Formula One experience would be included in that list. But I would stress that at the moment any discussions are very preliminary. Just they are just really trying to get to know what people's interest levels are, what their motivations are. And that kind of thing. So there's certainly we're certainly not in advanced discussion with any driver.
Yeah. No, I saw Valtteri Bottas walking around earlier as well. He's another name that gets thrown into the ring as a race-winning, experienced driver. I guess is that one of the upsides though? Is you are looking at a market where available next year are a number of drivers who've won races and have, as you say, competed as recently as last year.
Yeah, we are in a lucky position from that point of view. There's a bunch of people, a lot of experience, and not just turn up and drive experience. People who've been at championship winning teams or race winning or whatever, but also people who are younger who've got experience as well. So that's another angle, and also promising drivers who haven't yet had Grand Prix experience, but they have proven themselves in junior formula and junior categories as well. So we're in considering we were not able to be active in that last driver market, we're actually we're in a reasonably good position at the moment in terms of putting together a driver lineup for 26. And we've said a number of times the the driver lineup will be, selection will be on merit, and I'm happy that all of the drivers that we're having early discussions with are perfectly capable Formula One drivers and perfectly capable of leading a good professional team.
Yeah. And I know there's been a lot of interest as well in an American driver potentially being part of that lineup, but I guess you've got a wide range of great talents there. As you said, young drivers, you've got like Jack Crawford coming up in F2, but then you've also got the likes of Colton Herta in IndyCar as well, winning races.
Yeah, exactly. You've got Colton, who's obviously started the IndyCar season now, and looking in the first race, I would say, drove very well and finished fourth in the last race. Obviously, very interesting to see how Jack goes in Formula 2. The first round in Melbourne was a bit disrupted.
Very, yeah.
But there's a lot there as well, and as we've said before, I think everybody would expect a Formula One team to hire their drivers on merit, and that's what we'll do. But as we've often have said before, there's nothing stopping that, meaning that we would have one or more drivers from the US at some stage.